On the ground, the Ukrainian people remain divided. Some celebrate the decision, hopeful that keeping control over their resources will mean a stronger, more independent economy in the long run. Others worry that without immediate funding and expertise, nothing will change, just another missed opportunity in a time when Ukraine desperately needs stability and growth. For the communities living near these mineral-rich areas, the future still feels uncertain. Will this decision bring them jobs and prosperity, or will the land remain untouched while political battles drag on? What's clear is that Ukraine is no longer just a player in this story, it's trying to rewrite the rules. By stepping back from rushed agreements and demanding more control, it has shifted the balance of power. But the challenges ahead are enormous. The fight for these critical minerals isn't over, and as global demand continues to rise, new pressures and opportunities will emerge. For now, Ukraine has made its choice. It won't be easy and it won't be quick. But in a world where resources mean power, one thing is certain: this decision will shape Ukraine's future for years to come. And the rest of the world will be watching, waiting for the next move. Here's an engaging and natural-sounding introduction for your YouTube video story. The war in Ukraine has reshaped global alliances in ways no one could have predicted. Military aid, political deals, and economic partnerships have all taken center stage. But beneath the surface of this high-stakes, geopolitical chess game lies something even more valuable: minerals. Critical minerals. The kind that power the world's most advanced technologies, from electric vehicles to missile defense systems. And the United States has its eyes on them. So, what does this mean for Ukraine? And what kind of deal is actually on the table? Some see this as a lifeline for Ukraine's economy, a chance to rebuild and secure its future. Others worry about the risks, who really benefits, and at what cost. To unpack this, we're turning to someone who knows the mining industry inside and out, an economist who has studied these kinds of deals for years. Right now, Ukraine holds vast deposits of lithium, titanium, and rare earth elements, minerals that are essential for everything from smartphones to fighter jets. The US, meanwhile, is in a race to reduce its dependence on China for these materials. A deal between Washington and Kiev could be a win-win. But history has shown that resource deals are rarely that simple. Will Ukraine get a fair deal, or will this become another case of a resource-rich country losing control of its own wealth? What challenges could stand in the way? Political instability, corporate interests, or even outside interference? Our guest today will help us separate fact from fiction and break down what this deal really means for Ukraine, the US, and the global economy. Stay with us as we dive deep into the world of minerals, money, and power. You won't want to miss this. The story of Ukraine's mineral wealth isn't new, but the urgency around it has never been higher. Long before the war, Ukraine's land held some of the most valuable untapped resources in Europe. Lithium, nickel, cobalt, these aren't just materials, they are the backbone of modern technology. Without them, electric vehicles wouldn't run, fighter jets wouldn't fly, and the global push for clean energy would slow to a crawl. But for years, much of this potential remained locked underground, waiting for the right moment, or the right players, to bring it to the surface. That moment might be now. As the war drags on, Ukraine is looking for ways to rebuild, to strengthen its economy, and to secure its future beyond just military aid. The US, on the other hand, is under growing pressure to reduce its reliance on China for critical minerals. The two countries need each other. But how will this partnership actually work? Will it truly be a fair and balanced deal, or is Ukraine at risk of losing control over one of its most valuable assets? Some voices in Ukraine are cautiously optimistic. If handled correctly, a mining deal could bring jobs, infrastructure, and investment at a time when the country needs it most. Others, however, fear a different outcome, one where foreign companies step in, extract the wealth, and leave Ukraine with little to show for it. Resource-rich countries throughout history have faced this same dilemma, and the results haven't always been in their favor. Could Ukraine avoid the same fate? Then there's the question of security. Mining projects aren't quick or easy. They require stability, long-term investment, and government oversight. But in a country still at war, where the situation on the ground shifts daily, can any company guarantee a safe and sustainable operation? What if these mineral-rich regions become military targets? What if competing interests, both inside and outside Ukraine, try to control these resources for their own gain? And let's not forget the environmental impact. Extracting minerals isn't just about digging up the earth, it's about managing the waste, protecting local communities, and ensuring that the land isn't permanently damaged. Who will be responsible for this? Will regulations be enforced, or will short-term economic goals take priority over long-term consequences? At the same time, competitors are circling. Other nations with interests in Ukraine's resources aren't staying silent. Some are quietly offering alternative deals, hoping to outmaneuver the US. Others are trying to disrupt negotiations altogether, using political pressure or economic influence to complicate things. This isn't just about minerals anymore, it's about global power, and Ukraine is caught in the middle of a much bigger game. On the ground, frustration is growing. Local communities near proposed mining sites are demanding transparency. They've seen deals like this before, promises of jobs, investment, and economic growth that never quite materialized. They want to know who will really benefit and what safeguards will be in place to protect their land. Some fear that in the rush to secure a deal, their voices will be drowned out, just another casualty of decisions made far above them. Then, just as it seems like the deal is coming together, a new problem emerges. A legal battle erupts over mining rights, with multiple companies claiming they have ownership over key sites. Some of these claims date back years, tangled in Ukraine's complex history of privatization and political upheaval. If the courts get involved, it could delay the deal for months or even longer. And in the background, whispers of corruption start spreading. Anonymous reports suggest that some officials involved in the negotiations may have personal stakes in the outcome. If true, it could shake public trust and force a complete overhaul of the agreement. The pressure is at its breaking point. Everyone involved is waiting for the next move. Will Ukraine stand firm and secure a fair deal, or will outside forces shape the outcome? The answer is just out of reach, but one thing is certain: whatever happens next will change everything. Just when it seems like the legal battle over mining rights will be the biggest obstacle, an even more shocking development shakes the entire deal. A leaked document surfaces, an internal report from one of the US companies involved in negotiations. It outlines concerns about the long-term viability of Ukraine's mining infrastructure, hinting at risks that were never disclosed publicly. The report suggests that without massive additional investment, extraction could be far more expensive and difficult than originally planned. Worse, it implies that some of the richest mineral deposits may be located in areas still under threat from military conflict. The leak spreads quickly, fueling speculation. Was this information deliberately hidden to push the deal forward? If so, who knew about it, and for how long? Ukrainian officials scramble to respond, insisting that the country's resources remain as valuable as ever. But behind closed doors, frustration is growing. Some worry that if investors start doubting the feasibility of the project, they might pull back, or use this as leverage to negotiate even more favorable terms for themselves. As tensions rise, another unexpected player enters the fray. A major European mining conglomerate, previously uninvolved, suddenly expresses interest in striking its own deal with Ukraine. Their pitch: a supposedly better offer, one with higher upfront investment, local job guarantees, and stronger environmental protections. It sounds almost too good to be true, and that's exactly what makes it so suspicious. Where did this company come from, and why now? Is this a genuine attempt to help Ukraine, or is there another hidden agenda at play? The timing couldn't be worse. With the US-Ukraine deal already facing legal challenges and political scrutiny, this new development threatens to fracture negotiations completely. Some Ukrainian leaders argue that they should explore every option before committing to one partner. Others warn that delaying too long could push the US away, costing Ukraine a crucial economic lifeline. Behind the scenes, American officials grow impatient, making it clear that if Ukraine hesitates, they might take their business elsewhere, perhaps to another country looking to develop its minerals sector. Meanwhile, ordinary Ukrainians watch all of this unfold with growing unease. What started as a hopeful opportunity now feels like a high-stakes power struggle with too many unknowns. Will their country gain the economic strength it desperately needs, or will foreign interests ultimately dictate the outcome? And with so many moving pieces, is there still a way for Ukraine to take control of its own future? The uncertainty is unbearable. Every side is calculating its next move, but the balance of power is shifting too fast for anyone to feel secure. The deal is still on the table, but for how much longer? The real battle is just beginning. As the pressure reaches its peak, Ukraine's leaders are forced to make a decision. The US deal, once seen as the only viable option, is now tangled in legal disputes, political tension, and growing public distrust. The sudden European offer has thrown everything into uncertainty, creating a divide between those who want to move forward with the US partnership and those who believe Ukraine should reconsider its options. Time is running out. Investors are getting nervous, the war continues to rage in the background, and the world is watching. Then, in a dramatic turn of events, the Ukrainian government makes an announcement. It will not immediately sign either deal. Instead, it will take control of its own mineral industry, at least for now. The plan is to create a state-owned entity to oversee mining operations, ensuring that Ukraine itself sets the terms before bringing in foreign partners. It's a bold and risky move, one that signals a shift in power. Rather than becoming dependent on outside interests, Ukraine is choosing to take ownership of its resources. But just as it seems like the conflict is reaching a resolution, another twist emerges. Reports surface that a major Chinese company has been quietly securing stakes in smaller Ukrainian mining firms through third-party investments. These deals, made over the past several years, had largely gone unnoticed in the midst of the war. Now, with Ukraine attempting to take control of its own industry, the realization hits. Some of its most valuable assets might already be entangled in foreign hands. The government scrambles to assess the extent of the situation, but one thing is clear: this battle isn't over. The world of mineral deals is never simple, and Ukraine's path forward is still uncertain. The US may have lost its initial chance at a direct agreement, but its involvement in Ukraine's economy isn't going away. The European offer, though promising, now faces additional scrutiny. And the quiet influence of other global players, working behind the scenes, raises new questions about who truly holds power over these resources. For Ukraine, this was never just about minerals. It was about sovereignty, economic survival, and the struggle to define its own future. And while one chapter may be closing, the next is only beginning. The stakes remain high, and the choices made in the coming months will determine not just the fate of Ukraine's mineral wealth, but its role in the global economy for years to come. The game isn't over, it's just changed. And now, the world is waiting to see what happens next. In the days following Ukraine's bold decision, reactions pour in from all sides. Some praise the move as a step toward true independence, a sign that Ukraine is refusing to be just another resource-rich country controlled by foreign interests. Others worry that without immediate outside investment, progress will stall and Ukraine could struggle to develop its mineral wealth in time to make a real impact. For now, the world waits to see if the government can turn its vision into reality. Behind closed doors, negotiations haven't stopped. The US still wants access to Ukraine's minerals, but now the terms will have to be renegotiated. European leaders continue to push their alternative deal, sensing an opportunity to increase their influence. Meanwhile, Ukrainian officials work to untangle the hidden foreign investments that have been quietly shaping the industry for years. The realization that parts of the mining sector may already be in outside hands adds another layer of complexity, forcing the government to rethink its next steps carefully. On the ground, the Ukrainian people remain divided. Some celebrate the decision, hopeful that keeping control over their resources will mean a stronger, more. These questions don't have simple answers. What happens next depends on the decisions made in boardrooms, in government offices, and even on the battlefield. Ukraine's future may be tied to these minerals, but who will truly benefit from this new race for resources? That's what we're here to find out. Stay with us, because the real story is just getting started. For Ukraine, this isn't just about striking a deal, it's about survival. The country is caught between rebuilding its economy and protecting its sovereignty. The promise of foreign investment is tempting, but history has shown that resource-rich nations don't always get the better end of the bargain. There's a fine line between partnership and exploitation, and the question hanging in the air is whether Ukraine can negotiate from a position of strength, or if desperation will force it to accept terms that could come back to haunt it. Behind closed doors, discussions are already happening. US officials and private companies see an opportunity, not just to help Ukraine, but to secure an alternative supply chain for critical minerals. Global competition for these resources is heating up, and China currently dominates the market. If the US can establish a foothold in Ukraine's mining sector, it could be a step toward breaking that dependence. But is this about helping an ally, or is it about geopolitics? That's the part no one is saying out loud. Meanwhile, inside Ukraine, there's growing debate over who should control these resources. Some officials argue that the government must take the lead, ensuring that Ukraine's wealth stays in Ukrainian hands. Others believe private companies, both foreign and domestic, should take the reins. After all, they have the technology, the funding, and the expertise to turn mineral deposits into actual revenue. But this brings up an uncomfortable question. If major US corporations get involved, will Ukraine have any real control at all? Then there's another layer to the conflict: corruption. Ukraine has been making progress in fighting it, but the scars of past deals gone wrong still linger. Some fear that if billions of dollars start flowing into the mining sector, the same old problems could resurface. Backroom agreements, political favors, and profits disappearing into the hands of a few while the country struggles to recover. Could this deal truly benefit ordinary Ukrainians, or would it become yet another story of wealth slipping away before the people ever see it? And what about those on the ground, the communities living near these mineral-rich sites? Many of them have already suffered the effects of war. Now they could see their land turned into industrial zones, their environment altered in ways they can't control. Will they have a say in what happens next? Or will the decisions be made far away, in offices where profit matters more than people? As Ukraine weighs its options, the world is watching. This is more than a business deal, it's a test. A test of resilience, of fairness, and of what Ukraine's future will really look like. But right now, nothing is certain. The stakes are high, the players are powerful, and the next move could change everything. As negotiations inch forward, tensions rise. The stakes couldn't be higher. Ukraine's future is on the line, and every decision made now will shape what happens in the years to come. Behind the scenes, powerful interests are clashing. Government officials, mining executives, foreign investors, and even international allies are all pushing their own agendas. Each side claims they want what's best for Ukraine, but the deeper you look, the more complicated the story becomes. The US wants to move fast. Its dependence on China for critical minerals has been a growing concern for years, and this deal could be a game changer. But moving fast means cutting through bureaucracy, and in a country still fighting a war, that's easier said than done. Some Ukrainian officials worry that rushing into an agreement could mean signing away too much, giving foreign companies too much control, losing leverage, and ending up in a situation where Ukraine becomes just another supplier rather than a real partner. But can they afford to slow down when their economy is hanging by a thread?